as a solution to societal problems in the face of an increasingly urbanized and industrial world. It was about teaching self-reliance, it was about teaching character, it was about teaching resilience, interdependence, and independence. It was an educational movement. The first camp directors were teachers, taking children outside and back to their roots. And what you'll see in this presentation is that camping in the United States is even more essential today than it was 150 years ago, for similar reasons. Back then, camp was a response to industrialization and urbanization, and today camp is a cure to an over-technologized generation of children and teens. But we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. So the first American camp was founded by Frederick Gunn, a Connecticut school teacher who believed that we need to take children outside, teach them skills. So the second, another early camp was founded by Dr. Joseph Rothrock, who founded the North Mountain School of Physical Culture. Dr. Rothrock believed that the development of mind and body must go in hand in perfect symmetry, and that physical culture supplies an important educational need for children. It combines healthful recreation with instruction in subjects of great practical and scientific interest. It also taught moral character, physical needs. It inspired kids to learn. Dr. Rothrock knew that teens needed to test themselves in order to build self-esteem and self-confidence. He also understood that self-reliance was important, but also interdependence and teamwork was important. So all of that. And that physical vigor and positive risk-taking is absolutely essential for those teen years. Dr. Rothrock taught physical geography, geology, botany, natural history, ornithology, and survey at his camp. And then in 1881, Ernest Balch founded Camp Chakarua, where it was on an island in New Hampshire, and his aim was to develop hardy, responsible, independent, and resourceful boys. He recognized the importance of teaching self-reliance, self-governance, self-leadership, and community building at camp. The camp was comprised of youth from diverse economic backgrounds. They were not just kids with means. They lived like pioneers. They learned to sail, catch fish, cut firewood, cook their own meals, and survive in the wilderness. So then, at the turn of the century, Camp Kahanka and others came along. In this era, camping for young ladies was regarded as daring, if not unbecoming. In fact, before 1902, there had been no organized camping for girls in the United States. The realization of potential for spiritual growth and everyday living was a big, strong emphasis at Camp Kahanka. Laura knew that development of character attributes like self-reliance, unwavering integrity, and emotional stability were very important. So experiences like this in group living confirm home training and provide opportunities for social adjustment and emotional stability. Camp Kahanka taught that happiness through companionship and constructive activity was achievable through camp. And this camp was about, they taught serving others. The motto of Camp Kahanka was not to be served, but to serve. And so from 1902, for the next 20 years or 25 years, girls' camps flourished. They grew. There was Camp Erie Pinelands, there was Camp Wyogonic, there was Camp Wohelo, there was Harriet Gordon Lowe's Camp, Girl Scout Camp, and many more. These trailblazing camps understood the important place that women were to occupy in the 20th century, and that camp experiences were essential in preparing them for it. I imagine some of you have seen this before. In 1922, Charles William Eliot, former president of Harvard University, was giving a speech to camp directors in a meeting of what was then an earlier form of the American Camp Association. And he said the organized summer camp is the most important step in education that America has given the world. So American camping was then recognized as essential to youth development because it teaches responsibility to one's community, because it teaches altruism and servant leadership, and because it inspires a purposeful life. It is aspirational and strengthens an individual's identity and self-confidence through non-parental mentoring. So we were pretty wonderful that Dr. Eliot was one of the early speakers who made that more publicly known. So from the 1920s to the 1970s, I'm sorry for the screen being short like that, but doing the best we can. From the 1920s to the 1970s, the American camping movement flourished. It grew, and it was a time of program refinement. We established health and safety standards. The American Camp Association Accreditation Program was founded in 1948 and will turn 70 years old next year. In those standards, we addressed questions like, what determines a good program, a program of good quality? How do we have adventurous activities that are safe? It addressed staff training protocols, and it framed programs in youth development research and established practices with authority. It also, during that time, we looked at things like how to structure programs. Do we provide more skill development, or do we have more time for unstructured, creative, free play? Do we have more individual choice, or do we have deeper project learning, longer projects? Do we have centralized camp programs, or do we have decentralized programs by ages and stages of development? Do we have opportunity for competition in athletics, or do we have a completely non-competitive community where everyone wins? So these are questions that every camp director struggles with when they're developing their program. And so the that 50-year period, and still these questions are being experimented with in our industry. You will find camps that are very competitive all the time, and you will find camps that are completely uncompetitive. You will find centralized programs and decentralized programs and everything in between. So today, American Camp serves an estimated 14 million children a year. Some interesting trends are happening. School camp, which is something that is happening in a bigger way in other parts of the world. School camp is burgeoning, it's growing. Just this past year in the state of Oregon, the government decided that every 5th grade boy and every 5th grade girl would have at least a week of residential summer camp, and they fully funded that program. The state of California is discussing this as well, and we're very hopeful that they will also adopt that at some time in the future. The average length of camp in the United States is just 1 week. That's the average. But there are camps that are 4 days long, and there are camps that are 7 weeks or 8 weeks long experiences. Today, you'll see in the United States a lot of camps that are focused on 1 week programs that are focused on skills. But there's still traditional camping where there's a focus on community and skill and development of the self, the individual. The other thing that's interesting is that we now have a growing university-based camping segment of our industry. So famous universities that you know in the United States, many of them like Ohio State or Penn State or Clemson University have a large number of camp programs that are happening on their campus. Upwards of 2,000 camp programs a year at those universities. So the universities are concerned about providing these programs safely and of good quality. So they're seeking our help in accrediting those camp programs, just like they're similar to their accredited university education programs. So this is a new area for us, and we're working right now to redevelop our accreditation standards so that they are more accessible to the ever-widening camp market and the ever-deepening camp market. American camping, in our country, camp experiences come in a lot of different forms. We are the Boy Scouts, we are the Girl Scouts, we are Campfire, which is an organization called Campfire. We are religiously affiliated organizations like the YMCA, the YWCA, the Jewish community centers, church camps, as well as independent resident camps, independent day camps, family camps, adult camps. Adult camps are growing in the United States. Right now you will see a number of new camps coming out that are designed for 20-somethings, people who are living in between the age of 20 and 30. So young adults going, they have an extended adolescence now. So they want to go back to camp as young adults, and that is a very big part of our market. On there, you'll see a chart, and just to let you know that agency camps like YMCA, YWCA, Jewish community centers, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Campfire, that is a large piece of the market. The blue there is agency camps. It's about 34%. Religious camps are about 18% of our market. Independent for-profit camps, like owned by a family or an individual, are about a quarter. And independent nonprofit are about 20%. So it's a pretty well-established market, but as I said before, the diversity of programs being offered today is wider than ever before. And the depth of program characteristics is deeper than ever before. So it's a fascinating market to watch. And it's changed so much in 150 years. So let's look at the impact that camp is having in our country. So, and again, I'm sorry for the screen, but in 1995, the internet arrived, right? In 1995, in my country, the internet arrived. In 2000, smartphones arrived. And in 2007, the iPhone was introduced. In 2012, more than 50% of Americans owned a smartphone. And today, that percentage is even higher. In my country, when you are, if you're a typical boy or girl, will often be given a phone for practical reasons by their parents when they're like 10, 11, or 12. And personally, I want to hold off on this as long as I can with my own son, but that is what happens. So it's really important to understand the impact of technology on society and how camp fits into that. So it's important to know that American camp, about 90%, we do surveys at the do research at the American Camp Association, and our research shows that about 90% of American resident camp experiences are internet or tech-free. So the campers do not get to keep their phones with them during their resident camp experience. They put them away, we take them and put them in the office, and we give them back at the end of the session. So because in America we know, as I think you know, that camp is human-powered. It's human-powered, it's sustained, it's immersive, and it's where we have authentic human relationships. Camp programs specifically focus on teaching and modeling and practicing the social skills that most schools in our country, because of a lack of time and resources, cannot teach effectively. So at camp, we focus on each other. We look at each other in the eyes, and we connect like real human beings, like we did when we were growing up, or like I did when I was growing up. So we know that increase in-person social skills, practicing that creates positive relationships, and that creates happiness. So that's what camp is really all about in the U.S. So the smartphone generation. So if young people in the United States who were born beginning in 1995 through today, we know them as Generation Z, or some people today are calling them iGen. They are about a quarter of the U.S. population, and they are the first generation for whom the internet has always been present in their lives. They've never known a time without the internet. They're so lucky, I think, they're so lucky to have this tool because it gives them instant access to so much information. The way they do their homework, the way they answer questions and address their curiosities is wonderful in many ways. These young people, typically, research shows that they typically have an Instagram page before high school and don't remember, the time without the internet. But the interesting thing is that psychologists and sociologists today are writing a lot in our country about generational shifts that they're noticing that started to happen in 2011. So the iPhone came in 2007. These young people grew up with it, and as they became teens, sociologists and psychologists have noticed shifts that are happening as a reason which they believe are attributable to the smartphone. And so here are some of those trends. First of all, we know that they're having less in-person time. We know that. Just 25% of teens spend time with friends in person, outside of school, on a daily basis. Let's just think about that for a second. So only a quarter of American teens are spending time with their friends in person, outside of school on a daily basis. That's radically different from the way I grew up. Change is happening. They're online. They're using their thumbs instead of their eyes. We know that half of American teens say that text messaging is their first choice for communicating with their closest friend. We know that they're not having unstructured, independent, and free time, but they're focusing on their thumbs and their screens rather than having organic, authentic, in-person relationships. The average American teen checks their phone at least 80 times a day, and I think that is growing exponentially. Wow. We also know that iGeners are pretty competent at forming friendships online. 57% of teens ages 13 to 17 have made new friends online, with 29% of teens indicating that they've made more than 5 new friends online in online venues. But here's the scary thing. Most of those friendships stay in the digital space. Only 20%, 1 in 5 teens, have met an online friend in person. It's crazy. So this is a little alarming to us. So more screen time results in less in-person social interaction, and less in-person social interaction results in more loneliness, results in depression, and even worse. We know that we are now, sociologists and psychologists are noting that in the United States we're at the forefront of the worst mental health crisis in decades. The rates of teen depression and suicide are skyrocketing and have been doing so since 2011. They've noticed the shift. So again, they believe it's related to this device or devices like it. Teens are now lonelier than at any time since 1991. A stunning 31% more 8th and 10th graders felt lonely in 2015 than in 2011. 22% more 12th graders felt lonely in 2015 than in 2011. 50% more teens in 2015 demonstrated clinically diagnosable depression than in 2011. The teen suicide rate has tripled among girls ages 12 to 14 and increased 50% among girls ages 15 to 19. And the number of children and teens hospitalized for suicidal thoughts or self-harm doubled between 2008 and 2015. So as someone who has spent 30 years working in youth development, I'm afraid. And I think, and I also believe in my heart, that getting children outside in camp is the solution. Without these things. Put these away, have immersive, sustained social opportunities in camp, in nature, and this will begin the healing. More. We also know that iGenders are growing more slowly than in previous generations. Sociologists and psychologists note that 18-year-olds today in the United States, 18-year-olds are acting like 15-year-olds, and 13-year-olds are acting like 10-year-olds. So they're maturing differently than they used to. In this new smart generation, there are less opportunities for positive risk and less opportunities for resulting growth. These kids are less likely to go out without their parents than previous generations. When I was a teenager, I couldn't wait to have the freedom to go out on my own with my friends. An 18-year-old today, they've noted, research is showing that 18-year-olds today now go out less than 14-year-olds did 6 years ago. They're noting that iGen teens are less likely to date. Only about half as many iGen high school seniors go on dates as did baby boomers and Gen Xers, the earlier generations. iGen seniors are less likely to obtain a driver's license. 72% of iGeners are obtaining their driver's license. Virtually nearly all seniors in the boomer generation and the X generation. So it's a big shift. iGen teens are less likely to work when not in school. It's hard to understand that, except that parents want kids to focus on their academic interests, their club interests, but they're taking on less responsibility economically than they did in the past when they have that opportunity. And American parents, and I'm an American parent, are very much helicopters. We keep a very close eye on our children today. We keep a very close eye on our teens today. And I believe we don't allow them to take more risks like we were allowed to do when we were younger. So how are teenagers going to have the opportunity to take positive risks? How do we guide them to the right opportunities that are not negative and dangerous, but to positive ones? Camp provides teens safe environments for adventurous, positive risks, mentoring others and being mentored, leadership, and so much more. That's what camp is about. And I really believe that when you take kids to camp, you are inspiring purposeful living. You're helping young people understand what they can achieve in their lives in a community that is authentic, where they feel safe, where they have healthy relationships, and they find happiness. Let's see. Okay, so the other thing that's interesting is that while these teenagers are physically safer, right? Their world is safer than ever before, they feel mentally and emotionally more vulnerable than ever before. We have not given them resilience. These iGen teens are more risk averse. They're less willing to take chances because they haven't had practice in that. And they're sort of terrified, not just of getting hurt from physical dangers, but the emotional dangers of adult social interaction. When we were young, we had conversations and discussions and disagreements, and we learned to disagree and be okay with that. This generation is one that believes that someone disagreeing with them constitutes emotional injury. And we have, as parents, we have caused this. So they need more practice at being with diverse populations where there are different different thoughts, different ideas, and learning to share their ideas and disagree and have debate and learn to take risks in ideology. So this longer childhood, coupled with parental overprotection, has made kids vulnerable because they don't learn how to solve problems on their own. And I know and you know that people overcome their fears by confronting them, not by hiding from them. So the good news is, I believe, camp is the cure. Camp is the panacea. Camp is about safe, human-powered adventures. It's about immersive social environments. It's about being mentored by non-parental young adults. For me, going to camp, I had amazing young men and women who mentored me, who helped me find my way and helped me form my ideas in my own individual nature. That mentoring is essential. And parents need to understand that they cannot do all of the mentoring in the development of a young person. At camp, there are authentic, caring relationships. There are positive risk opportunities where you can test yourself, where you're encouraged to push your comfort zones, build confidence, develop self-esteem, where you can relax. Because this is a generation, in the United States, this is a generation that is more anxious than any generation ever before. Very, very anxious. So they need to learn to relax and be mindful and be present and be more comfortable with who they are. This takes practice. In American camp, I'm excited to say, like here in Russia and in China and other countries, STEM and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, and math, are a very big part of camp heading into the future. People are investing in STEM centers within their camps, so you can be outside enjoying nature and have a community at camp, but you can also be learning about astronomy and space, technology, robotics, engineering, math, art, so many things. Like 150 years ago, educators are going outside. They're taking their classes to camp to find new settings where kids are feeling more inspired, where they're listening differently. I don't know about you, but I think this generation of kids, they're more kinetic learners. They want to move while they learn. They want to experience and learn. They're experiential learning. So school camp is blowing up. It's continuing to grow and strengthen. It's not required by our government, and this is an important point I want to make because I know some of the countries here already have the government being very supportive of school camp. But in the United States, it is not yet something that is widely recognized by our governments, by our local government or by our federal government. So individual teachers are seeing that it works, and they're taking their classes with the help of parents, and administrators are taking their classes to camp environments. It's very exciting. So you may have heard about 21st century learning skills. In the United States, the 21st century learning skills movement is alive and well. If you go online and Google 21st century learning, you will see a lot of references in the United States. We know that camp teaches the transferable skills, the essential transferable skills that this new generation needs to understand. When my 10-year-old son Daniel grows up, and when he's an adult, everything that can be automated in society, I'm pretty confident will be automated. So I ask myself, and my wife asks, we ask each other, what do we need to teach our child now so that he can be most successful in his time in the future? These kids need to learn to share, to co-create, and to collaborate. They need to learn to think critically and learn how to solve problems. They need to learn to listen and communicate effectively with diverse personalities. This is not something that they're learning in school necessarily. They need to innovate, to learn to innovate individually and within a group. So we need to return to our roots, go back to the woods, and think and work as humans. To teach them this, we bring them to nature where the only distraction is the awe-inspiring beauty of the land and the magic of natural science, where we teach them to focus on learning with and from each other. Together, they will learn about strong communities, leadership, learning success from failures, and these generations will be inspired to take risks and not be afraid of failure. And from that will come success, and I think a better society. Let's see. Oops. There we are. So I'm a big believer that one of the best pieces that we bring from the camp experience is teaching kids how to have community. We camp directors are so lucky we get to create, we get to model community building the way it should be in the future, the way that we know it will be most successful in the future. So teaching citizenship, teaching altruism, giving of yourself to others, teaching diversity and how to live well as a community in the midst of diversity. Kids learn to contribute more than they receive, and through those contributions, they feel ownership of that community. That inspires servant leadership. Leaders who give more of themselves than they ever would ask of anyone else. And at camp, because of all this investment that they make, they build deep, lifelong friendships. And they learn independence from their parents, and they also learn to be interdependent with their peers. And they learn to be good leaders and team players. This is what camp is all about. And we have the privilege of taking kids outside to camp and helping them understand how valuable community is. So at camp, it's about life skills, and I believe that summer camp is like a character multivitamin. Like, everyone needs a dose of camp every year, and the experiences should layer one on top of one. Everyone needs regular, distraction-free learning where kids will learn emotional self-control, where emotional and social intelligence are nurtured. That is camp. I want to share, this past summer, my own son, Daniel, made exceptional strides in a nurturing environment in a 7-week camp. And after Daniel returned home from camp a few months ago, yes, you did not hear wrong, 7 weeks. He goes to camp for 7 weeks. Sounds crazy, I know. But he benefits amazingly from this immersive environment where he is led by non-parental mentors outside and really challenged to push his comfort zones. So after Daniel returned home from camp last month, little pieces of his camp story have emerged. So over dinner, like a month or two ago, over dinner, I asked him during family dinner, I said, Daniel, what was your biggest learning experience this past summer from camp? And Daniel said, Dad, I learned to face my fears. And I just about fell on the floor because, first of all, it's pretty articulate for a 10-year-old. So he's heard someone talking about that, probably at camp. My wife and I were absolutely stunned to hear such inspiring words from our son, who honestly is a very typically risk-averse Gen Zer. He wears glasses like his father. He is a little bit delayed in growth motor skills, gross motor skills, and so he is slow. He's not always the first person to try something that is physically challenging. So to hear him say, "I learned to face my fears," was just amazing. He went on to say that he realized while he was at camp that he had all these fun opportunities, and with the urging of his counselors and his new friends, he decided to go for it, to have a little bit of courage and try things. And when we dropped him off at camp, he was not going to try water skiing. He was not going to try the ropes course. There were so many things he wasn't going to do. And when we came to visit him, he showed us that he did go off the leap of faith on the ropes course, that he did go water skiing, and that he did go sailing. He learned to sail. He learned to row. He learned to be a leader in his bunk, in his group. And he learned to nurture friendships. So I saw with my own eyes, and I am a professional camp director. I've been doing this my whole career. But it's very real when it's your own child making these strides. So being able to unplug at camp and be yourself and have the chance to jump and try something totally new is something that every kid, every society needs to have. Camp is essential for all kids. Every child in the world, let alone America, deserves the opportunity for the benefits of camp. I'm sorry to say that in America, not every child gets to go to camp. A small percentage, maybe 15 to 20% at most, get to go to camp. Where I know here in Russia that is not the case. Most, if not all kids, have the chance for camp. We're excited that school camp is becoming a right for every student. And we're starting to create research and evidence that tells the story of why camp is essential from an educational point of view. Teachers and parents and youth movements are taking kids outside, teaching them about authentic relationships, community, and the sense of who they are today, where they want to go in life, and what they want to contribute to society. And so that's really what I was up here to talk about today, is that I believe that camp is essential. In our American communities, it is an essential solution to over-technologized kids, and it will teach our kids those important 21st century learning skills: problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, and communication. Those are the things our kids need to understand. Truly human skills. Truly human skills. That's what they will need to know. And so that's what we can provide at camp. And so that's why I'm here to present that to you today. And I would be glad to take any questions. And I want to thank you for coming. So does anyone have a question? Yes. So in Oregon, this past November on Election Day, there was a Measure 99. It was ballot number 99, and the people of Oregon, the state of Oregon, the province, voted to take money from a lottery program and invest it every year now to guarantee that every child, every boy and girl in the 5th grade and in the 6th grade will be guaranteed a week of camp. So in my country, this is a very radical idea. I know here in Russia, 90% of the children get to go to camp, I think. But in America, it's a privilege still, not a right. Other questions? Don't be shy. Yes, sir. I can give you my sources. They're very easily accessible on the internet, but I've got links on my slide deck for you. Yeah, but the Pew Research Institution in particular, you can just I'll share them with you. But Pew and other studies are very obtainable online now, showing this alarming mental health crisis that we're experiencing. And you know, guys, I want every kid in my country to go to camp. And this is ready-made marketing tool, right? What we're doing is essential. Parents don't necessarily know it. They're so busy using their phones, parents, that they don't even notice what's happening to their kids. And I'm guilty too. I find myself using my phone around my kids as well. Approximately. American. No, American camping as a whole. I wish I could tell you that not every camp in America is accredited. In fact, there are a lot of anomalies about American camping. So I would say to you that only a fraction of American camps are accredited. Our government has not yet, we're a federalist, or we have a republic. So the states retain the right to govern camps in America. So the federal government doesn't technically govern camps. So there's no federal policy that says all camps must be accredited. All camps must. So this is an important point because American camp has been around for a long time, the government hasn't necessarily seen fit to establish a federal policy that has rules for camps across the country. So I've worked in camping in North Carolina, where there are very few rules for camps in North Carolina. They're looking at, to give you a permit to open a camp there, they'll look at they'll look at the physical quality of the cabins and living environment the kids are in and the kind of food that they're eating and whether it's healthy. But they won't look at program quality. They won't look at how you recruit staff. They won't look at a lot of things. They don't look at most things. And so we have camps that are operating at a high level with good program quality, that are thinking about outcomes, and they're hiring safe, talented, qualified people. And we also have camps that are down here. And parents don't know the difference. And so as a result, my suggestion to so many countries are developing their camp industries, for goodness sakes, you need to develop standards, national standards in your countries so that parents will understand that if you meet those standards, that camp is going to be safe, and that you are professionals, and that you are working hard to provide the best camp experience possible. And I think I'm not proud of the fact that we don't have, honestly, I wouldn't mind if the government were to say every camp in America should be accredited. I wouldn't mind if we've been trying for 6 years in America to get a law passed that will give camp directors access to doing federal background checks on camp counselors. Right now, I cannot do that. I cannot access that as a camp director. Some states, some provinces allow it, and some do not. In the state of North Carolina, we never had access to it. So I had to use commercially available methods of checking the background of a prospective staff member, and these methods are generally inaccurate or not comprehensive. And so our kids saved. So there's lots of opportunity in my country to improve, even though we've been around for 150 years. Other questions? That's a good, thank you for bringing that out. Anyone? Well, no? You, yeah. Go on. These two are my two questioners. No, it's fine. Every state, we have camps in every state, all 50 states have accredited American Camp Association camps within them. The government, so it's more about the courts. The courts generally recognize us as the standard. So if you are found to have been negligent in the way that you operate your camp relative to established American Camp Association accreditation standards, you will oftentimes be adjudged to make amends with whoever you've harmed. I can think of a case just last year in California where a child a camp didn't take appropriate precautions related to dietary allergies, nut allergies, and anyways, a child passed away, and the court required, it was like a $13 million judgment against the camp, and they required them to become accredited. That is, more and more we're seeing that. But some states, some courts in some states are less, California is very progressive, but other states are less progressive. So the unfortunate reality is it's a little bit all over the place. But we, with a 70-year-old accreditation process, we're able to at least have some authority because we've been doing this for a very long time. The process of becoming accredited has become very evolved. This new version that's coming out will be digital and much more efficient and less laborious and easier for camps to use. It isn't easy though, it's rigorous. It takes probably a couple years to work up to becoming accredited. But that's what we're here for. We're here to educate. Our association is a charity. We're a charitable nonprofit. So we exist to benefit the public through education, through research, and through accreditation, and also through advocacy. So we want to help anyone who wants to start a camp create a safe camp. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Thank you for asking. So for those of you that don't know, the current administration in the United States the president signed an executive order in April called Buy American, Hire American. The intent of the executive order was to help create jobs for Americans, but it came out in the press that the president was part of the Buy American, Hire American executive order. The president was thinking about eliminating cultural exchange visas, J1 visas specifically, which we use in American camping to find wonderful international cultural exchange participants in places, all countries, many, many countries, including this country. And they come to camp for 3 or 4 months. They have a summer experience where they work as a counselor or a support staff member, and then they go back to university or onward with their life. That has been around for, since 1961. We've had J1 visas. This international cultural exchange, or what I call camp cultural exchange, has been around for that long. And so the president, the public perceived, and we perceived that there is a possibility that the president might eliminate J1 visas. So we are very concerned about that, and we've been working with camp directors across the United States to educate the government that these are important cultural exchange opportunities, that we know that this camp cultural exchange program is one of America's best diplomacy programs. And so to answer you directly, my friend, I was in the White House last Wednesday talking to the Domestic Policy Council, and they told us, and I'm allowed to say this publicly, they told us that they believe that what the president wants to do is take the J1 program back to its roots. Its roots in 1961 were cultural exchange and education. So we believe that we're working really hard to have we're trying really hard to get something in writing from the government that says that camp cultural exchange is safe. So right now in America, camp directors are working as usual to plan to come abroad to interview for camp cultural exchange participants. We're doing our best to keep going, business as usual. The government said that it would take, in that same meeting, they said the rulemaking process for any changes would take 12 to 24 months. So while they can't guarantee that this summer would not be impacted, it seems likely. But we're speaking to the White House, but we're also speaking to the U.S. Congress, to senators and congressmen, and asking for their support to create laws that enable camp cultural exchange to continue unimpeded. So we're fighting. We're fighting. And I'm feeling optimistic. If you want my honest opinion, I'm feeling optimistic. But this administration is different. So it's hard to know. Yep. Okay. Yes, sir. Well, I think we go back to the roots of ACA. 1910, it was founded. Why? Because there was a group of male and female men and women camp directors who wanted to create a more professional camp experience. We're a profession, all of us in this room. We are like doctors and lawyers and engineers and accountants and architects. We are professionals. And so that, I think, is what we were able to give to ourselves. Over a period of 107 years in America, we have evolved into becoming a profession. We have standards. At the American Camp Association now, we offer continuing professional education. We offer continuing educational credits to camp directors every time they take a course, an approved course that we approve. They earn credit for that, and we keep track of that credit. So we're trying to behave and live like professionals, where everyone receives professional education every year, where we agree to work together to have standards that matter, right? So a good camp is going to have at least these minimum. I want you to understand that the American Camp Association accreditation standards are minimum standards. They're minimum standards. They're not best practices. So many movements within the U.S. have best practices above and beyond ACA standards. But to answer you directly, I think providing professional education by establishing national standards for your country, and by also advocating, fighting for children to have these educational opportunities outside. We are producing research in America that you can use to argue for the relevancy of camp experiences in your country. And I believe that some of your countries are providing research that we can use, and you will help us do the same. I'm really excited. One day, I want to do research around the benefits of being a mentor. You guys didn't ask me, what are your biggest challenges, Tom, in American camping, besides the J1 visa, for example? I think most American camp directors would say the number one problem they have right now is they can't find enough young adults to work as staff members in camp. There's competition today for a 20-year-old like never before. Universities are requiring them to have internships. And so far, they're not telling us that, we don't always, young people don't always get credit for camp experiences the way they get credit for being an intern in a law firm. So we're trying to tell the story of the power of being a mentor at camp. Like, what is that? Yeah. We are. Yes. Experiential learning, exactly. And so we know that camp, those experiences of being a mentor for a group of 10-year-olds is extraordinary, life-defining in many cases. So that's the biggest problem. And it's interesting, to your point about the J1, the number one problem that camp directors tell us about is we can't find enough staff. So we're trying to also explain to the president that there aren't enough young Americans to take the jobs that we have available in summer camping. So we need these cultural experiences also because we need these young individuals from abroad to bring their culture, to bring their skills, and put them to work in a diverse community. And so we get all the benefits of cultural exchange, And we also have the benefit of having very talented people come and work in our camps where we can't find that talent locally. Camps in our country are typically in the rural areas, outside of the cities. So very urbanized kids, teenagers, have a hard time getting to camp. That's another problem we have. Any other questions? Yeah. You're welcome. Any other? I'll take one more if you have. One more? No? Thank you so much, you guys. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the night.